One day you're going to be on your deathbed and other people are going to be on their deathbed. Maybe you're not going to make it in time. You're not going to talk to them and you'll be like, I wish this person knew this. I wish I had apologized. I wish I could have voiced that. I wish I could have asked them that. Am I going to wait another how many
Till
decades
yes.
and risk that I miss it? Or am I just gonna man woman up right now and be like, fuck, like this is hard as hell. But why not today? It's
Yeah.
eating your energy. It's an energy leak. Even if you don't think about it, even if it's like that person from 20 years ago or 50 years ago that you haven't seen, if you feel like you owe them a conversation, it's somewhere in the back of your machine and
yeah.
it's consuming your energy. Even if you don't know it, it's an energy leak.
Communication is really about creating safety, creating safe
Yes.
space for, first of all, myself to speak my truth and creating a safe space for another person to speak their truth. That's why this is so important that we talk about what does it look like if I decide that I want to open this conversation with my parents? What is the preparation?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Awaken Boho podcast with Claire Boho. In today's impactful episode with Kirsi-Marja Hardy, who is a parenting coach, a parent of 4 adults, as well as a grandparent, we discuss what it means to reparent ourselves and how that can help us to come to terms with any difficult events that may have happened to us in our childhood. We offer advice on how to become the adults in the relationship to our parents and take charge of these relationships by first processing any trauma that may have occurred and then starting difficult conversations about how we experience our childhood in a non-violent way. This framework is pertinent to not just the relationships we have with our parents, but truly to all relationships, past and present. We provide a roadmap to taking responsibility in our relationships and explain why we highly recommend doing that in order to preserve our vital energy and live from a place of integrity. I hope you enjoy it and benefit from it.
Hi, Claire. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
We're going to talk about reparent. I'm really curious to know if all of our listeners know what reparenting is. You've heard that term, right, Claire?
I'm not sure if I've heard it much before we started talking about it. I guess I have, yeah. In like the personal development space, I guess it's in the healing space. I guess it's kind of thrown around, but I don't know. I
Yeah.
just kind of heard it around for a while. I'm actually curious if that's a term that people are familiar with or not.
That's what we're going to talk about. First of all, what is reparenting? And then how do we do it? So, what is it to you? I'm just curious to know because to me it's become such a obvious term, but not everybody knows. Not everybody has heard of it.
Well, the way I understand it is that, our parents, even if our parents were the most amazing parents out there, they've done their best they could, but, you know, they nobody went to sort of like a parenting school back in the olden days, right? So there's always different sorts of misattunements and misalignments, and even if they try as hard as they can, like every child is just so individual and so different. So there's these things that happen, and then there's trauma that occurs, and trauma can be something really small. It can be like, you're in kindergarten and the parent doesn't show up and then you're like get super scared and you feel abandoned, and that can be trauma. So like nothing bad really happened, but the child perceives it as something traumatic. So all these little, big or little traumas happen, and we feel like we were not attuned to or taken care of in a way we would have wanted to as children. And it can happen that as adults, we're still sort of looking for something from our parents, or like we feel like we haven't been parented in a way that we would have liked and that would have been sufficient or like necessary for us. So there comes a time in your adult life, and if you're on that path of sort of healing, personal development, when you sort of decide, okay, I can't just rely on my parents to do that for me. And like maybe they can't, or maybe it's too late, or like maybe it's not necessary, right? Like or maybe they've done the best they could, and what I need right now, I just need to give that to myself. So the reparenting would be like, okay, this is what I sort of missed in the parenting that I received as a child. So now I'm gonna learn how to give that to myself. Would that make sense?
Absolutely. I love that because that is really what, in a nutshell, it is. So, and you so well said, first there's this process of accepting. It's hard to come to accept that, hey, my parents actually screwed a lot of things up because it is, I don't know the percentages, but I just know that there is no perfect parent. There's no perfect parent. And you said, it's the attunement that the child is always after because they're in the present moment. And when their mind through fear go out of the present moment, it's a scary place for them. But if the parent can attune to that, noticing that, hey, I'm right here with you. Affirming to the child, you're not alone. Hey, we're going to get through this together. So then the attunement becomes amiss, and a child will stay alone in his experience without having that security of a parent. So something gets shattered, something get fraction. And then there's this process where the child is even trying to get that attunement as long as she can feel it. Like, this is my perception. Now somebody else can have something else, but this has been my experience of looking for that attunement because you remember what it was. But in longer term, years go and years go and years go, and you don't remember it anymore. It's like you're lost from it. You're lost from that. And that's the reparenting, kind of getting that connection back, but not through your parents, but through yourself. And like you said, not expecting something from our parents that they cannot give us. They were not able to give it then. They're not going to be able to give it now, all of a sudden, that we realize that they weren't able to give it. And then there's this humbling process, to accept that, wow, and then get to choose, do I choose to understand, even in a greater way? That's a big part of reparenting, understanding about, even for me, it has been understanding about my parents' own childhood. I looked into the history of when they were growing up. I looked into their parents, their nervous system of those parents, and I become to understand because I'm in this field. So I look even deeper and I look even longer and I'm even more curious. So it just showed me that, what, my parents did the best that they knew how. They gave me everything, and so I get to, through that understanding, to forgive, but there is still that component. I still had the need that was not filled,
Yeah.
you know. And it's not that I wanted it, it's that I needed it. It's that you needed it, you needed that atmosphere to be of nourishment, like to those plants that are behind you, it's the soil
Yeah.
that actually gives the nourishment, so it's that field, the atmosphere where we invite our loved ones and children and all of that, how we create that. It's a huge subject. I am in Instagram and my Insta is called Present in Parenting. And I talk over there this week about this very subject. How can we reparent ourselves when we have children ourselves, or how can we include our parents into that reparenting process? And that's kind of what we wanted to talk about with Claire today. So I know you have been in a long journey of reparenting yourself. Well, really, that's what it is. So it's just a term. tuning into yourself, noticing your own pattern and repetition and where your energy flops down and, learning all these things about yourself. And that's what reparenting is. But then there's this, how do I communicate? I have these relationships with my parents, and now I start aching because I'm more aware of what is being for my growth and what has not been for my growth. Like, you have to pull out the weeds, but if you don't want to look at the weeds, then you never can pull them out. So can you, like, how has that process been for you?
Yeah, it's just such a, I would say it's just such a delicate topic and a delicate process. And it just, I feel like this path, it just gets you to a place which is so tender and it's, they say if you want to see how enlightened or awakened or spiritual or how much personal growth you've done, go spend some time with your parents, right? And because it's really like it's the environment where we grew up. Like, we spent so many years with these people, and they know us the way we were when we were children, and like with all our hurts, and there's all these grooves that they're like, so worked, like they're so deep, these grooves, like we have these dynamics with these people. And maybe we have changed, and especially for us, like people who do a lot of personal development and a lot of healing, and we just, change all the time so much. And then you change, and then you go back, and these people look at you like you're 13 years old again. And it's
Mhm.
not very pleasant, right? And then you know yourself to be a person of a certain communication skills or a certain integrity, and you're used to talking to people in a certain way, and you're used to being spoken to in a certain way. And then you go back, and it's like you just realize, like, oh my goodness, like this is how people talk to each other here, and this is how I was used to talk to them, and this is how I was always being talked to. And then you're spoken to in that same tone again. It just so doesn't resonate. And perhaps you're even like you want to like glitch back into that pattern and start speaking back in that tone because like you used to do it. And he's like, that's not how I communicate anymore. And it's just like creates this massive gap of you sort of start questioning, who am I? Am I really this person? Am I that person? Am I both? Am I somewhere in between? And first of all, how do I figure this confusion out in myself? And secondly, how do I communicate that confusion? How do I communicate the changes that have occurred? How do I communicate that I've changed and I'm now a different person, and that I have now different expectations, or
Mhm.
like I want to communicate in a different way. Like I want to be respected more, and I want to respect you more. So I think we should alter our conversation a little bit. So I think that's one thing. But yeah, so sort of like coming to terms with these things, I found that extremely difficult because it's like, on one hand, you feel like you've been misattuned, or like you feel like things have been done to you, or things could have been managed better when you were a child, because now you have all these issues and wounds and trauma that have followed you all like around your whole life, right? And you're like, if this thing just wasn't here, like this other person does not have to deal with this stuff, I could just be rocking my life, right? If I didn't have all
Right.
these beliefs and all these things. And there's all this resentment and judgment and blame and anger and whatnot, right? At some point. But then you sort of like come to terms with it, and you just like really, like you said, you really look at the situation where your parents came through, and you're like, wow, like they had it a million times worse. They've done
I
the best
agree.
they could. If I look around what, other families within my bigger family or my town, or their socioeconomic, geographic location, strata, environment. If you compare, you're like, wow, like I really had it the best. If I see, like, they really did so much better than people around them did, or their parents did. Like, they did better than any reasonable person could have expected of them. So you're like, really, like, there's nothing to blame them for. And then you sort of come to this point of like, on one hand, you really feel like you need to communicate yourself. Like, this is what happened, this is how I perceived it, and this is how it has marked me, and it's still impacting me to this day. And like I feel hurt, and so I need to communicate that, like not necessarily, like not to blame you, but I just need to speak it out. I need you to know that this has happened and it has hurt me. But on the other hand, you're like, well, here I am. I decided to do my own personal development, my own healing, and I have the tools, and I've built the resilience to do this. I'm the one who signed up for this. They didn't. They don't have the tools. Nobody taught them. They didn't say that they want to participate in these experiments, right? So there's like this, you feel torn. It's like, do I say something because I know it's going to hurt them because they did the best they could? And you'll be like, you still hurt me. You still fucked me up, like in a way, right? Like, and so you're like, do I say this? Because like, I don't know if they're going to be able to handle this. And so for me personally, I sat with these things for like years of doing my own personal development. 3 to 4 years, I've just been sitting and I've been like, I can't say these things because it would hurt them too much. And a part of me really wanted to, and part of me was like, that's not right because they don't have the tools. It's not fair. It's just gonna be heartbreaking. But eventually came to a point where I was like, in the past maybe 2 months, where I really came to a point where I'm like, I am walking this path of truth, of integrity, and authenticity. These are my greatest values, and my truest authentic expression is one of my greatest values. And I need to speak. I need to open up my throat. I need to open up my mouth and speak. And I've heard this a million times, but it's so much easier said than done, that how the things you say affect the people around you, that's not your responsibility. And especially with our family members and with our parents, like that's just such a delicate topic, right? But it's like you just need to learn. If you feel you need to speak, you're literally hurting yourself if you feel like you need to speak something and you're not allowing yourself. So eventually it came to a point where I found my words and I found a way to phrase it where I, made sure that it, well, first of all, what I want to highlight, really, really highlight, is that it has taken me so much time now that I've really come to a place of I feel good with myself and I don't feel resentment. I don't feel anger. When I say I'm not blaming you, I know it's not your fault. I mean it. Like there's no residual anger, resentment, blame, like meh sort of feelings. Because as we've talked about many times, the energy behind the action, the energy behind the words speaks louder than the words themselves. So like I'm so glad that I came to this point now where like now I feel ready to say these words. And I'm saying them from a place of love. From a place of love, not from a place of anger and hurt little girl. Like, you hurt me. It's like, no, I love you and I want to make these relationships right. So that's why I need to speak. Because if I don't speak, there's always going to be this gap between us. Because I feel like I couldn't voice things. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just on a monologue. You ask me.
No.
Now.
Just like my cup is running over. So it's just so beautiful. I 100% agree. And that's I can relate to that so much. And then I would also like to bring not another perspective, but a parent perspective for our viewers. I've been where you are, and then I've also there as a parent. So yes, and yes, and yes to speaking to your parents. I absolutely support that. And as hard as it was for me to receive that from my own children, it was still the rewards of that are so great, immense, like you cannot even comprehend. I couldn't comprehend. So restoration of relationship, connection, that bond, feeling like you're coming home again, like that trust and safety that is being created around us all. So even though you come it's extremely difficult for parents to I can't speak for all parents. Let me speak for myself. My apologies. So it was very hard for me as a parent to receive kind of the wrath of my young adults when their awakening came, because it's almost like, you also kind of worship your parents. At one point you don't see nobody else but them. They are your safety, they are your life. Fine. So there's a lot of psychological connections and bondings that are there. It's never black and white. But when the awakening happens, the stronger that bond that's been somewhere in the beginning, the more strength there is to hold it together when all seems to be coming down, because like with me and my kids, it just had to come down. But it's a process that is different for everyone. And for me, it was very difficult because as a parent, I gave everything that I had. I couldn't give anything anymore because I didn't have it. So, and those things that I did do wonderfully and even maybe excellently, all of a sudden they just weren't there. There was only, it's like the scene on the stage was only bad things and negative things, and those things that I couldn't do because I didn't have the wisdom or the resources or the regulation, knowledge, understanding that I have now.
Plans or awareness, whatever it is, right?
Yeah. So as a parent, it's difficult to receive. However, that's where the 100% of taking responsibility comes in. And
Can you just introduce that model for people shortly?
yes. I was going to just say that I did not know what that meant when I first heard it. I actually had to hear it a few times for it to really start sinking in, because I was probably refusing to because so 100%, taking 100% responsibility of a relationship simply means that you become responsible for your own emotions. You become responsible for your own reactions. And through those emotions and reactions, you start studying yourself and you come to a place where you start responding. And within all that, if a child or your friend, okay, I'm going to say this because this one Bible place comes to my mind. So King David was a commander of his army for years and years and years. They went through wars and wars and wars. And all of a sudden, the man who had trusted him blindly turned against him. And he was walking on the mountain and they came and they started throwing rocks at him. And his first man, right-hand man, said that, okay, you want me to go and kill them? And King David said that, no, let them throw the rocks, that somehow this is my place to take it. Like he took 100% responsibility of the relationship, even holding space for his men who were underneath him to show anger like that. So that's a place of a parent. And that's why earlier we talk about the reparenting and what does it look like to take 100% responsibility of those emotions, 100% responsibility of that relationship. It is just what I'm witnessing in you. It's it's to live from your core. It's to live from that core, no matter what it looks like. And it's the give and the receive. You get to live of that core. Like, you get to take the time to respond. You get to take the space to communicate, you know. You get to feel that that's yours, and the other person gets to do the same. So then we have this beautiful, you know, sense of communication where we're communicating from core to core. And that's the beauty, because then we connect again. And that's what happened, you know, that's what happened. So for you to give your parents the gift of communication, it's miraculous. It's courageous. It's honorable.
Thank you. Can I
Mhm.
give another reframe on the 100%?
Yeah, absolutely.
You spoke a lot about like you take charge of your own emotions 100%. That is, I think that's the most important part. But to me, what it really means, like that taking 100%, I actually was just writing a letter to somebody today, and I actually use that here comes my 100% of responsibility, because I feel like I've communicated something to a person and then I haven't heard back from them, and then it's gotten kind of awkward, and then I'm like, why do I feel awkward? It's like it's not in line with that integrity, truth, authenticity, because it's like if you feel sort of that awkwardness with anyone, be that with, you know, a stranger, a friend, a colleague, a parent, a child, a partner, then it means that you're sort of, why do you feel awkward? Because you're kind of guessing how they're feeling, or you're kind of guessing how you should be feeling. You're kind of guessing what's in between you, and you don't know. And it's like, why is that? Because there's a lack of communication, or like it could be that there's like a lack of clarity in your emotional side as well. And that's okay. Like if you need to figure out your feelings first, but if you sort of feel like you have left things unsaid, that's sort of what it came to me. It's like, have I done my 100%? And I'm like, no, I haven't. If I had done my 100%, it doesn't matter if the other person responded, reacted, agreed, disagreed. If I am fully good with myself, that I have done my 100%, then I am in line with I am in my integrity, because I have done, like, I have went to the edges of my integrity, and I know I have clarified what I did or what I didn't do, like how I feel. I have clarified my feelings. I have, you know, apologized for anything I needed to apologize for, taking responsibility for anything I've taken responsibility for. And if I felt hurt, or, you know, if I felt misattuned, or if I felt like something was lacking that I wish the other person knew, because maybe they don't know, then I'm going to communicate that. But like if I had done all of that, then I have taken full responsibility. And if my child, my parent, my partner, my friend, my colleague, my whoever is not able to meet that level of communication, that bar that I'm setting, then I can be okay with myself knowing that I have done everything I possibly could. And then I don't have to feel remorse. Then I don't have to feel that awkwardness, because I'd be like, I have put all the cards on the table. Like, I'm so transparent. I've told them everything. And there's nothing else for me to add. If they can't respond anything to that, like, I'm good. And it's like, you know, and it can still hurt, right? But you will know that you have tried your very best. Like you have, yeah, I think it's like what you said with the emotions. It's like understanding our own emotions, and is like, is there something that, you know, like I get to apologize for? Because it's like, even if the other person, let's say, you know, I feel hurt by my parents and I want to tell them what hurt me, but maybe they have done that for many years and then they stopped doing that, or maybe they have done that in certain occasions and in many occasions they didn't do that. But because I was so hurt from that one instance when I was 3 years old or whatever, right? And it like created that groove in your emotional body. And then every time they open their mouth, you're like projecting onto them that they're doing that thing again. Like they're controlling you, or they're telling you what to do, or they're like criticizing you, or they're not supporting you, or whatever it is, maybe a million times over. They did the thing you wanted them to do, or they didn't do the thing that you thought they were doing to you, but you just couldn't see it because you were so hurt already from that very first instance. And so you're just projecting and projecting and projecting and projecting. So it's like, I get to communicate, this is how I feel. but I get to communicate, this is how I feel. And it's my subjective feeling. It's not the truth. It's not the objective truth. And
that is so important. I just want to pause right there. That is so important knowledge, because that puts you and your parents on a common ground. You know, when you say that this is how I experienced it, and you can even like, hey, I know this may sound harsh to you, but this is really I'm really where I need to be with this, and I would love to communicate this as best as I can. But please remember, this is my experience. So then it sets the parents in a place of non-defense, like, oh, I'm
exactly.
curious that
Not being attacked.
Yes, yes. We all have space now, because see, communication is really about creating safety. Creating safe space for, first of all, myself to speak my truth, and creating a safe space for another person to speak their truth. That's why this is so important for me, that we would also talk about, what does it look like if I decide that I want to open this conversation with my parents, and I think, you know, like that there's just no way around it. What is the preparation? Is there like a preparation that we can go through? You know, like you mentioned, you sat with it so long within yourself. I would really adventure to say that if we don't sit with it, we're going to pour our own emotions through judgment and anger and kind of attacking, you know, our parents, because they're strong. It's energy. It's like waves. So this is part of the 100%, that okay, I'm going to sit here as long as I feel this storm, that I'm not going to react out of this storm. I'm not going to send any letters out of this storm. I'm going to read through it and ask support from somewhere where I know that it can be given to me. And that's why the accepting is such a huge part, because accepting that, hey, my parents can't give it to me. Like Einstein says, the sign of insanity, if we keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. It's not there.
Yeah.
Like with me and my parents, every attempt that I had to try to, this was before I started receiving coaching. I was just going around the same mountain with my mom, especially.
Yeah.
So just coming to her, like I could not see what was going on. I could see from her humanhood. I couldn't see from my humanhood. I was always like forgiving, but it was just the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So there was no expansion to it, you know?
Yeah.
But then you start learning, understanding your parents, where they came from, and seeing your parents' pattern and seeing them in yourself. And this can be very scary. This can be very emotional. And unfortunately, also, it happens that a lot of relationships get severe. I have some in my family, my extended family, that the mother and the ex-husband don't talk to each other anymore, and the child and the father don't talk. It's just like a whole lot of hurt, you know? So it takes work. It takes this inner work for us to be able to bond in an authentic way with people, because otherwise we'll have these personal things in between, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess something that we wanted to bring through is sort of what you opened right now for somebody who, first of all, their parents are still around, right? And if they feel like they can receive this conversation. And I'm going to speak a little bit more to that, but then we could also speak about if, for example, like you said, you or some other people, if they feel like, okay, I don't think my parents are able to meet me if I opened a conversation like that. Is there something I can do, right? So first, to sort of finish off on that, like how to start that conversation if you want to start that conversation. So first of all, yeah, like really sitting with it and really make sure that there's no anger and no resentment, like so that you're not projecting that, because it's just not going to be helpful. And I'm not saying you're not right to be angry. You have all the right to be angry. You know, you've been hurt. Everybody has been hurt. It's totally okay. And it's totally has its place. But what I'm saying is, if you start a conversation from that place, I don't know if it's going to lead anywhere that you actually want it to lead to. It's like what Kirsi said. How would you react, right? If it's just a burst of anger, like it's not going to be constructive, probably. It's just going to hurt everybody. And it's very likely that, you know, there's going to be a lot of defense mechanisms and it's just going to escalate, or, you know, it could end up in these contacts being severed. And so the anger is the first part, I think. Like, do your own anger work. And there's so many different ways you can do your anger work. You can work with coaches, you can therapy, you can do somatic things, you can, you know, you like have an exercise routine, go to gym, you can just smash some pillows, scream into pillows, channel energy into walls. Those are my favorite go-tos. Or just sitting with your anger, screaming, making sounds, making movements, shaking, so many different ways. Lots of stuff to do. Make sure you take care of that first. And then the second thing I sort of started to talk about was taking that responsibility. And it's like, yes, voice what happened and this is how I felt. And then sort of looking and sort of acknowledging if you might have been projecting. It's like, it happened a few times. It really did happen. This is how I felt.
So
Then sort of look into like, and then perhaps I didn't allow you to show up any other way. And this is one thing that we do, all of us, people do. Like we project not just our own feelings, but also like how we think we are going to be perceived by other people. So it's like, let's say I feel insecure, right? Let's say Kirsi is a parenting coach, right? I'm not. And Kirsi wants to talk about parenting. And I'm gonna feel like, oh, who the heck am I to talk about parenting? I don't know anything about it. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna show up and Kirsi's gonna think that I don't have anything valuable to say. And she's gonna put me down, right? Like that's totally not the case, but I'm just trying to make something up, right? And so I'm gonna be like, oh my God, I feel, you know, insecure. I don't have any place here. She's gonna look at me like I'm totally incompetent or I have no authority here. And so then I show up and the way I talk, the way I speak to her, the way I present myself, I'm projecting onto her the treatment that I expect from her. So, and it's like, and then that place, it's like I put myself here. So like it's so difficult then for her not to take me up on it. When we play the victim, right? If I show up like I'm a victim, it's really difficult. For me, it's really difficult. If somebody constantly shows up as a victim or like they're not good enough or they're not smart enough, it's really difficult for me to reject their own projection of how I should receive them. Because it's like they really gift it to you and like they make it really hard, right? So it's like maybe, so what I'm trying to say here, it's like maybe I'm like expecting my parents to treat me like a little child. And the way I show up, like I serve it to them on a golden platter to the point that they can't treat me any other way. And maybe we do this to each other, right? And it takes some skills to like actually,
Can
right?
we stop right there? Because you just was really digging deep there. And I would want to open
for it.
that up just a little bit.
Go for it.
So I love what you were just saying about that energetic dance that you have as a child with your parents and your parents have with you. And there's so many conditionings that are around all of
much.
that. So it's
What is
like,
not
you know,
there,
trying to dance tango and cha-cha and jazz and rock and roll, all of that at the same time in the same dance. And it just doesn't work like that. So we are trying to dance with all of these
It
conditionings.
would not work.
And then one generation has these conditionings, and the new generation starts having some other conditionings. And so it's just like this wild west. And like you said, then we start pretending, you know, Then the parent, this is just a scenario, I would love to hear what our listeners think about this. But then the parent start feeling like, since I don't have answer to this child, and this is my child, I'm going to make up stuff as I go. So I'm going to create this framework that is going to be convenient for me to create because I don't know what else to do here. Like this is too crazy and time is going and the child is crying and they're growing and now they want to go outside without me. And, all that stuff is going on. So they create this framework, which is, of course, from their own childhood. So that's how we carry these conditions. After conditioned, it's just kind of mingled into the new conditioning, like the past generation is going to take all the conditionings that they have from their own childhood and mingle onto you, which, but it's all that, hey, there is a bond here that we both desire to go to. The bond of safety, the bond of unconditional love, acceptance. There's this bond. And we start getting there when we just become authentic, like you said, in your own authentic voice, in your own authentic way. Maybe your authenticity is to be quiet. Maybe you have already spoken so much that you can't even speak anymore. And the relationship is just like infected or at standstill or just, and now you can take a pause and just come and be still and be quiet. It's all about cultivating and creating that space where both your parents and you, your children, can grow. And it requires a lot of trust and faith in that process, I want to read this. I just had a moment. Girl, when we have those magical moments. So I was sitting in front of my computer and just gazing out, and all of a sudden this sentence came to me, and I'm going to read it so I won't mess it up. We lack no knowledge. We yearn for presence and a relatable experience while wanting to be unique. And when that dropped into me, I was just like, that is it. I could feel that. I could feel it into this conversation about our parents and, reconciling things and whether to speak or not to speak, how to approach, what are they going to feel, all this stuff. And it's the desire that we want to be connected. So what is the price of that? There's no price. Even if we stumble into it, even if we rehearse ourselves and fall over and over again. But as long as we keep coming back to wanting to have that connection, that we don't just say, well, that's just the way it is. Well, I know many others like this who don't talk to their kids or who don't talk to their parents. Or we can just come in and, be together for an hour and gotta leave because we start fighting, So everybody's looking for that place of bond.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so worth it. And you can reparent yourself and still have that dance with your parents. Just focusing on that one thing. Whenever you communicate with them, see if you're resourced, if you have resource within yourself, that you're not triggered right now. You're not on a low energy. Like maybe it's time out right now for some of us, at least the older ones, not to go and complain to parents. Believe it or not, they have their own concern. And some of them never talk to us about them. They just endure. So they're carrying a lot, you know. I actually want to say this. I wanted to say it earlier. I forgot. So you mentioned, how our parents have got it worse than us, like 10 times over. Like I totally agree. And at one point I started really looking at my parents and admiring them, like how in the world, coming through what they have gone through, I don't know where I would be. Like, I don't know how they do the stuff they do, carrying what they carry. Hmm. And yet, you're worth all of that authenticity within you. You're worth all of that to be expressed and caressed, hopefully by your parents. And we just want you to know that you're not alone. You're not alone. And this kind of path, it also requires that support from your community and your friends, and so that you can keep coming back to that core, to that peace and to that nourishment. And you can always get there. Isn't that right, Claire?
Yeah. Yeah, I just really want to acknowledge the challenge that you mentioned there. I can say the same thing. I cannot imagine dealing with this stuff my parents had to deal with. God forbid my grandparents, right? They lived through like wars and
Honey, living in the woods. Oh my goodness. Can
that's
you imagine?
I cannot imagine. No, you just you're like, what am I complaining about, right? And I heard that a lot, from my mom. She's like, I have nothing to complain about. When we were younger, things were like this and that. Life is great. I have this, I have a roof over my head, I have food. Like, what do I get to complain about? And I'm like, really? Really, mom? Like, are you is that all you need? Like, are you satisfied? Are you gonna deny all the other things that, exist in life? Like all these emotional pains and all these things. So like, I get that. And like, it's really hard for us. Like, what am I complaining about? What am I sort of, holding a grudge against? Really, like, I'm working on a golden carpet here. So it's like really finding that grace and that duality and that yes and place where it's like, I acknowledge all the things. I acknowledge their pain. I command them. I salute them for the stuff that they've been through. I understand it. I have or maybe I don't understand. Maybe I don't have means to understand it, but I have compassion. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to imagine it, right? Like I'm trying to have all the compassion. And that doesn't mean that I have to negate and deny and reject and minimize my pain, because we all have that pain. Like it doesn't mean that I have to say like, what do I have to complain about? Like, no, it doesn't mean that you're complaining, but it's just becoming so brutally honest. Like again, it comes to that truth, authenticity, integrity. It's a feeling that I have, or it's a feeling that I had, or that I've had. And I need to be honest about it. When I communicated with my parents, like I said that, and I'm like, again, like I'm not saying it's subjective truth. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I'm justified in feeling that way. Maybe I completely misunderstood your intentions in a given situation. Maybe I'm holding things against you. Maybe it's not even of your origin, but this is how I felt. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying I have the right to have this emotion, but I've had it. And it's important that I voice it. because that's like how we start pulling out these thorns. It's like, I'm not right. I'm not even right to say this, so I'm not gonna say it. But then it's still there. Like you have this thorn and
Right.
you're not taking
And
it
who
out.
is the judge? Who is the judge?
That's a
See,
good,
this
that's a
is
good
this
one.
been ringing in the back of my head. Judge not, so you won't be judged. Jesus himself said that. But we live in these thick foundations of judgment. It's like we're swimming in judgment. It's like the whole Christian church was born under judgment. And Jesus says, don't judge nobody. You know, like it is that individuality, what you mentioned.
Yeah.
Sorry, my passion just flew in there. I just
I love
totally
it.
interrupted you, girl. I'm
Love
so
it.
sorry.
I love it. I love it. Please do. Yeah, that's it really. I love that. Who is the judge, right? So it's
Right.
that. It's like who is the judge of what's right and wrong, and then clearing out the stuff. It's like there's this wedge. Like I want to talk to Kirsi, but like there's this pillow in between us. So I can't even see her. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Kirsi. And like you can't hear me, you can't see me. I can't connect with her. And I'm like, it's fine. Kirsi doesn't know what this pillow is about. I don't know. I don't even know if this pillow is, if it even is a pillow. So like who am I to say there's a pillow here? Because I don't even know if it's a pillow. So I'm just gonna pretend like it's not here. And I'm just like, because it's not right for me to speak about this pillow because I don't even know it's a pillow. Like
Right. So, and
right.
where do you
But
hide the
she didn't put it
pillow?
here anyways, right? She didn't put it here. Probably it's not her responsibility. Like I need to deal with my own issue. Like she loves, or maybe she loves the pillow here, and like, but I can't talk to her, so I'm just gonna keep it right here. But it's like it's still here. Like we can't communicate, right? Like it's no matter what. So it's like, but if I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. Like I don't know if it's your pillow. I don't know if it's a pillow. I don't know what it's doing here. But it's fucking here. I feel it here. Maybe you don't feel it here. Maybe you don't see it, but I feel it right here, and I can't
And
talk to you. I
then
can't see
listen,
you.
then I say, I don't see any pillow.
Right, right.
I
And
don't, what
maybe
are
you
you
will.
talking about? What pillow are you talking about? I don't see any pillow. So then what then? You know, what then? Because then there comes that individuality, that unique. You know, we want to bond, but we have unique perspectives. So we can't bond through our perspectives always. Sometimes that's all the times actually what people do. They bond through perspectives. But really the place where the bond is in our beingness, where there is no perspective. There's just being. Like just that meditative, beautiful state of being. That's where our connection lies. That's where the connection to our parents lie. There's really no right or wrong, you know?
Yeah.
And then the perspective of those things that are there, like we ask, what is on the way? You know, what do you desire? You know, first of all, what do you desire? I desire, for example, that open relationship with my parents, where we can bond together back to that place of safety and connection and knowing each other like that. So whether it's possible or not, that's the focus, you know? And then every action we can see, okay, is it from that plumb line? Is it from that focus? Is that energy what I want that energy to be? Or do I focus on what's on the way, you know? And then even what's on the way, I get to focus on that because that is on the way, you know, and it's present and I can tap into it. I can tap into the pillow and see, oh, okay, wow. I feel resistance there. I feel like there's fear there. I feel like I am very anxious. I feel like I don't even know if I'm here or if I'm somewhere else or where am I? You know, where's my safety? Where's my core?
Yeah.
And so just feeling and a lot and reminding ourselves that I'm safe and I'm here with Claire. I'm here with this other person who can hold space for me. I can hold space for myself to a point, you know?
I can take this pillow and become really intimate with it, and it's like,
Yeah.
what am I feeling? Like, what is it that is here? And how do I communicate about it? And if the other person says, I don't see no pillow, then you'd be like, okay, well, I see it, but I recognize that you don't see it. I just wanted to tell you that I see it. And now that you tell me you don't see it, I have built the resilience within myself and gotten so familiar with it and so good in myself
Yeah.
that it's not gonna throw me off. And then I can decide, okay, well, at the end of the day, it's not serving me that it's here because I can't see you if it's here. So I'm gonna consciously make the decision that I put it on the side because I decide it's not serving me. Because what do I want to create at the end? Like, I want to create this connection, and by it's like, it's important that I talk about this pillow if I feel it here. But if I see that doesn't lead anywhere, and what I essentially want, what do I want? Like, why am I talking about it? Because I want to have this clear channel with you. I want to be pacing you, right? I want to have this flow of energy, flow of communication, flow of love between me and you. So if I conclude at the end of the day, no matter what you say or don't say, this here is not serving me, I'm gonna sit with it, I'm gonna cry it out, I'm gonna scream into the pillow, whatever I need to do, I'm gonna cuddle with it as much as I need to. But eventually, if I want to take my 100%, and this is only for the, it's not for the faint of heart, right? It's only for those who decide to walk that path of integrity and take those 100%. If you want to take your 100%, no matter if the other person sees the pillow, doesn't see the pillow, take the pillow and you put it on the side.
That's it.
Sorry, I got all crazy about that pillow there.
Yeah, but that's powerful. I feel that. I feel that. I feel the power of that authenticity, the opportunity that we all have, really, And I don't know, but maybe it's an odd perspective, but I feel like it's scary to take the other route, like to not take the responsibility, because that just wears you out. You just end up like going around the same over and over and over and over again. And the courage, I think we touched upon that on our last couple of lives, maybe. The courage comes from that joy, allowing yourself to open up to feel joy. And when we allow that to happen, we receive so much, and we receive so much for the journey, where we can hold space for. And it happens from these little things. It's not just one time event. It's like dominoes. You keep putting them, and in the end, it's that whole beautiful element that happens, when they all, you can see the work of your labor when you just knock one down, and it knocks every single one. You just knock one thing down. One thing after you have built, like every moment, every day we get to build, we get to create, and we choose, we create.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to downplay it. Like you say, it's scary enough to have these conversations, but also it is very, very scary to have these conversations, or it can be. Like for me, certainly it was, right? But yeah, like for me, it really came down to the point of like, I have two options. I cannot address and with my parents, but it's also like with other things, with anything in life. I have two options. I just say it's fine and I just hide it under the carpet. And then maybe one day, me or whoever the other person concerned in the situation is gonna be on their deathbed. And then you're gonna be like, oh fuck. I would like to call this person. Like now I would, and then literally to me it's like one day you're going to be on your deathbed and other people are going to be on their deathbed. Maybe you're not going to make it in time. You're not going to talk to them and you'll be like, I wish this person knew this. I wish I had apologized. I wish I could have voiced that. I wish I could have asked them that.
I
And
know,
then you're like,
right?
am I going to wait another how many
Till then.
decades
Yeah.
and risk that I miss it? Or am I just gonna man woman up right now and be like, fuck, like this is hard as hell.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
But why not today?
I'm
Like,
with
like
you.
it's
Yeah.
eating your energy. It's an energy leak because it's like even if you don't think about it, even if it's like that person from 20 years ago or 50 years ago that you haven't seen, it's like if you feel like you owe them a conversation, like it's somewhere in the back of your machine
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
consuming your energy even if you don't know it. Like it's an energy leak. So I was like, what are these energy leaks? Like what are those conversations with people from, you know, when I was a teenager, when I was a child, when I was 20 years old, when I like everything. It's an energy leak. I get to make this right again. That way of the integrity.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole thing is that you you are growing on this journey.
Oh yeah.
Your freedom just gets bigger and bigger. Your life gets more expansive. You are more centered. You finding your core more and more and more, and you have just that energy is being then poured into things that can grow, because that where it's at right now, that cannot grow. So you're going to shift it to something that can grow. So you're cultivating your own ground, you know. So we cultivate the ground for the plants, but that's how we cultivate our own growth, our own ground by choosing. And then, you know, using that, I use meditation to ground myself and to go through those emotions and allow that space to be created around me, because I can't control circumstances, but I can control my atmosphere. And I think that's a good place for us to start ending to. From my perspective, I just thank you so much, Claire, for your input into this conversation. I think it was just so beautiful and so important. I hope that our listeners have gotten as much out of it as I did.
Thank you, Kirsty, for bringing this topic through. I think it's a really great topic. Honestly, it's a little scary for me to talk about this. But I think it's so relevant, not just for conversations around parenting and reparenting and talking to our parents, but also for just like relationships in general. And even for ourselves, if we want it or not, we have relationships. And if we don't have relationships, we have relationships we neglected or we killed and we, you know, and again, like even if they end it, like their energy leaks because they probably like if they were neglected relationships, they didn't end well and their energy leaks. And now not having these relationships is eating up, even if it's subconsciously every single day. So I think this is a very important conversation for everybody even if they have great relationships with their parents, with their children, like just for relationships in general. Yeah.
That's it for now, my friends. Thank you for listening. If this spoke to you, let's have a conversation. My name is Claire Boho, and I'm an intuitive life coach specializing on helping you release the blocks that stand between the current version of you and your biggest dreams, so that you too can feel more alive, more vibrant, and stabilize joy, freedom, and pleasure as your baseline. If you're wondering how I could help you, reach out to me on Instagram, send me an email, or head over to my website, clairepoho.com, where you can find more about the work that I do, as well as read my most recent blog posts. I love you all. Thank you. And I'll see you back here soon.